Hello everyone, welcome to the Breakout Room 3, where we will talk about communicating and sharing your Erasmus Plus project results. My name is Mila Popovic. I'm Support and Development Officer in Vocational Education and Training. I would like to introduce you to my colleague Mark.
Hello, I'm Mark, Support and Development Officer for PALE Ireland.
And Lane.
Hi, I'm Lane and I'm a Communications Officer at Lergus.
During this session, we will look at what are your commitments in relation to sharing your project results. We will introduce you to some resources and methods of communication to assist you in this process. And we will also explore storytelling, digital storytelling in particular, to help you share your story in a creative way. I will pass now over to my colleague Lane, who will take you through different ways and methods of communication to share your project results.
Thank you, Mila. Firstly, I would like to congratulate you all on your Erasmus Plus projects. And for those of you who do not have a project yet, I have no doubt that you will leave today feeling inspired to start. I am so excited to be here today with my wonderful colleagues Mark and Mila, and I hope that the resources and tips that I take you through will support you and inspire you as you embark on this wonderful journey. Before I go through the resources and tips that we have put together, I would like to remind you that as part of your contract, you must fulfill certain requirements when communicating your Erasmus Plus project. Firstly, you must communicate your involvement in Erasmus Plus within your organisation. Secondly, you must communicate your involvement with Erasmus Plus to wider organisations and the public. And finally, you must publicly acknowledge European Union funding. I would like to remind you that these are all mandatory and important to remember. There are so many different ways and methods of communicating your Erasmus Plus project. Here are just some of the common ones. For example, you can create social media accounts and engage with your audience online. You can also create blogs or info pages for your organization's websites. You could even start a conversation with a friend, family, or even a member of the public and tell your story. You could print a media brochure or write a newsletter. Even go as far as creating a podcast series or even a video series, which I hope that we will see some examples of later on. The list is endless, so get creative. Each organization is different, each project is different, and therefore your audience might differ. Take the time now to plan how best to communicate your Erasmus Plus projects and spread the word about your inspiring stories. But please remember that there is criteria that you must follow when communicating your Erasmus Plus project. Luckily, we have put together a resource pack that will support you on this journey. You will find this by clicking the link in the title here. As I mentioned earlier, you must publicly acknowledge European Union funding, and you can do this through logos, which we have put in a folder here. We have also given you tips on how best to incorporate them into the dissemination of your project. We also have got a folder of EU Commission resources and further tips and information on how best to communicate your project. We have created an activity and impact tracker that is editable and downloadable for your organization's use. Please note that this is not a compulsory tool, but we highly encourage you to download it, try it, and make sure that you are communicating your Erasmus Plus project effectively. We've also created case studies and examples of how to best communicate your project using this activity tracker. So please take an in-depth look at all these resources. The fifth and final resource we have uploaded focuses on how best to capture the attention of your Erasmus Plus project. We have also uploaded additional tips on how to use social media when tagging different accounts, and also how to write a press release when contacting the media. Like I said earlier, each organization is different, therefore each project is unique. So take the time now to plan how to communicate your Erasmus Plus project and spread the word of your inspiring work. Read these resources in depth and take a look at everything available. I have explained to you what you will need to communicate and where you'll need to communicate it, but I would like to give you over to my wonderful colleagues Mark and Mila, who will explain how best to tell your wonderful story.
Thank you, Lane.
Here you go, Mila. Thank you.
Now that Elaine has talked about where, why, and how to share and communicate your project results, I will talk about what you will share. I will talk about digital storytelling for impact and dissemination. So storytelling is the natural way to share knowledge. And in order to be able to use all those wonderful resources that Lane mentioned, we've decided to focus on the digital storytelling. So what is digital storytelling? You could look at digital storytelling from the perspective of content or from the perspective of process. From the perspective of content, digital storytelling is a method that blends the storytelling with the digital media, such as images, video, audio, and music. You can also use graphics and interactive element. From the perspective of process, digital storytelling is a simple, creative process through which people with little or no experience in computer filmmaking gain skills needed to tell a personal story as a 2-minute film using predominantly still images and voiceover.
So the benefits of digital storytelling over traditional storytelling and the evolution that we've seen by adding in those extra tools makes it so much more accessible and allows you to communicate it to a broader audience?
Yes, that's exactly it. So, what is the relevance of digital storytelling and why did we choose digital storytelling as a way to tell your story? So, as Mark pointed out, it's multimodal, so it makes it very accessible. It's also participatory and engaging. It has a huge creative potential because you can find a way to express yourself in the way most suited to you. It can also be narrated, so it's important that you use your voice. It also has a point of view, which is really important in communicating impact. It improves digital literacy, it is collaborative, and it can be widely shared through the range of platforms and methods that Lane already mentioned. And we also have here a visual representation of digital storytelling, where you tell a story that is relatable. You communicate something to your audience. They understand it, and a connection develops. And then you learn from each other in that process. If you're new to this process and you're wondering, where do all these stories come from? Here's an example from social media posts from Mayo College of Further Education and Training that are sending 124 participants on their work placement across 11 destinations in Europe. Imagine the wealth of experience and stories that will be created during this process. You can also use digital storytelling to communicate impact. We have here some of the impact types to help you recognize the impact of your project. There is instrumental. It refers to changes to plans, decision, behaviors, practices, actions, or policies. There is conceptual, which refers to changes to knowledge, awareness, attitudes, and emotions. There is also capacity building impact, and it refers to changes to skill and expertise. There's impact of enduring connectivity, which is changes to the number and quality of relationships and trusts, and also culture, and also changes in culture or attitudes towards knowledge exchange.
So these skills that have been picked up with digital storytelling, are they usable across all sectors?
Yes, absolutely. So last year we published a report as part of the National VET team, and the name of the report is Erasmus plus VET Mobility as a Route to the Acquisition of Transversal Skills. It was authored by Mary Cleary, and it looks at the impact that VET mobility has on the development of transversal skills. So this is just one of the ways at looking at the impact. In this particular report, we were focusing on the VET sector. However, transversal skills are not related to a specific area of knowledge or vocational or adult education sector. They are just generally skills that refer to our ability to adapt, to our ability to develop relationships, resilience, participation, and adaptability, as you can see on the framework that was developed as part of the report. And as the chairman of our board referenced earlier, engaging in a mobility contributes to development of transversal skills. This framework demonstrates how engaging in different elements of the mobility process helps develop transversal skills such as collaboration, communication, cultural identity, self-awareness, and active citizenship. So how do you start the digital storytelling process? It starts with finding your story. What story do you want to tell? What is your story about? Also, finding the moment. Is there a single moment of change or impact that defines your journey or your project? It involves seeing your story, taking and gathering of the images from your project. How will the images shape your story? It's also about hearing your story, narrating in your own voice, music or soundtrack. Is there a particular song that you listen to during your project? It's also about assembling your story and putting all of the elements together. Remember, you only have 2 to 4 minutes. How do you put all the elements together effectively that really portray what your story is about? And it's also about sharing your story, as Lane pointed out earlier. Think about who is the audience you're sharing your story with, and what is the impact that you would like to communicate. Mark, would you like to tell us about some ways or platforms to share your project story?
Well, when we come to the part of this where we're creating a digital storytelling, we have to remember that the work has been done. Now we have to look at who we're going to tell our stories to. Naturally, by the nature of the stories that we're telling and the work that we do, we're looking at platforms such as Apale. When we use platforms such as Apale, we see the range of stories that people tell on there. Obviously, because of the nature of what we do, the audiences can be quite similar. So you're looking that it's important to use a language. And of course, as we said earlier on, the benefit of digital storytelling is that you can make it so much more accessible. Given that we've people speaking so many different languages, coming from so many different disciplines and backgrounds, it's great to capture something so broad, especially when you look at the fact that we've got 2 to 4 minutes to capture people's attention and invite them to get involved with us and potentially work on future projects. Showing the people that have been impacted by it, the actual people who've been engaged in the work, and listening to them tell their stories, is what's going to capture people's attention.
Thank you, Mark. We have gone through some of the elements of digital storytelling and digital storytelling process. Now we would like to show you a digital story. This is a video diary, and all you need for this type of story is your story and your camera. I would like to introduce you to Lucy.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Lucy in Finland. So this is episode 7, second last episode. And what we're going to be talking about is what I learned on my, why can't I say that word? What I learned on my mobility. Sorry, tongue twister. And any positives and negatives. But yeah, as you can see, I'm home now, so I can talk about my experience. So first off is, what have you learned? So I have learned how to take myself out of my comfort zone. This experience really made me grow as a person. Of course, it was quite a nerve-wracking experience being alone in a foreign country where they speak different language, but I was really lucky that everyone did speak English. But I still need to give myself a round of applause because that is quite intimidating and scary to think about. So I definitely learned how to be okay being alone. I've also gained some confidence from doing cool downs. So I was watching a teacher as I teach training camps, and he let me teach 2 cool downs to 25 students. So that was quite a nerve-wracking thing, but it was so fun. Like, I worked myself up so much for it, and then when it was done I was like, that was actually great. And then the second day I done it, I was like, that was great. Like, it was really, really nice to do it, and it's made me a lot more confident teaching to classes and speaking aloud. So positives from mobility. So of course, learning a bit of the language was absolutely amazing. It's such a beautiful language. I know I'm not like fluent or anything like that at all, but it's nice to know some words, and that I could make some sort of effort over there and learn a little bit. Another positive, of course, is that I made some friends, and they're just the nicest girls ever, and I'm definitely going to keep in touch with them. More positives, of course, is that I've been able to see how it feels to live alone, and it was a really, really nice experience, and I felt so independent, and it was just really, so I'd say life-changing, but is that a bit dramatic? But it kind of did feel like that. Another positive is what I said earlier about that teaching them cool down classes have given me a good bit more confidence. And what I realised from my experience over in Kiscalio is I quite want to, at the moment anyway, not forever, but I quite like the idea of coaching. So I actually last weekend started doing football coaching for 5-year-old kids, which is really nice and really rewarding. So I don't think I would have pushed myself to do that unless I'd done the Erasmus, but yeah, I'm just changed. No, that's a bit dramatic. Have I changed? I think I have. Any negatives from mobility? No. Of course it was lonely. And I missed my family and I missed my boyfriend, but it wasn't a big deal for me. I'm actually quite confident being alone. I interrailed for 5 days. I know that's not very long at all, but when you're an 18-year-old girl fresh out of school, it's kind of a big deal. So I went around Italy for 5 days by myself, so I'm well used to being alone. Of course, 3 weeks, 16 days was a lot more. But I was well able for it, and I definitely could have done another week or so until I started getting a bit homesick. But people need to know that it is tough. You are going to get lonely. I feel like that's the only negative, is that it's tough missing home, but I can't think of any other negatives. So guys, that is the end of today's video. I'll be back for the final episode where I'm going to talk about my parting information and my advice for any of you guys that want to apply next year. So see you then. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that beautiful example of digital storytelling. What other types of digital stories are there? So there's a sound story, which is a story with sounds without words. There's a place-based story where you can integrate maps and images within, for example, ESRI story maps. There's also photo voice. It's a very organic way of telling your story using photographs. There's a video diary, as we could see from Lucy's example. There's also podcasts, which is a digital audio story. And also there's a collage story, which is a collection or combination of different artifacts.
So to round up, we'd all individually like to give you one tip that you can take away from today. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope you are inspired to communicate your Erasmus Plus project and share the wonderful stories and work and projects that you have completed or that you're going to start. My tip would be to make sure that you take a look at the resource pack and have an in-depth look at every single resource and all the tips available. Each organisation is different, like I mentioned previously. Each project is different, and you are all individually unique. So make sure that you are telling your story and your inspiring work in the right places, in the right way, and to the right people.
My tip would be to consider your audience. Look at the people that you're looking to communicate this to and mirror their language, and always get creative.
My tip would be to remember that people see, hear, and perceive the world in different ways, and that sharing stories can lead to a positive change. Best of luck in your projects and your storytelling journey, and we would like to invite you to share your stories with us. Thank you.